All right, good evening, everybody. Christine Barconi back here in the NBC4i streaming studio, and a topic on everybody's mind tonight, and the developments continue to come. Are the Buckeyes, are the Big Ten, are they going to be playing football in just a few weeks from now? Less than a month. September 3rd was that scheduled first game. Jared Smalley joining us right now with what's going on, Jared? What's going on? There's so much happening today.
Oh, there's so much going on, Christine. It's been a wild day. I was just joking on the air that my phone battery is like dead at this point.
Oh, I'm at 19.
Yeah, 19. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting there. It's just been wild, and it hasn't all been just wild speculation. There's been a lot of fact at the root of the conversation that's gone on all day and all weekend, frankly, with what's going on with Big Ten presidents and their continued conversation about what to do with football, right? Uh, there was a report earlier today. They were supposed to meet tonight at 6 o'clock to discuss and then vote on whether or not to play football.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to checking around with some people who would know and found out that that was not, in fact, the case for the presidents. We've learned the athletic directors were planning to meet tonight, but the athletic directors have been talking every day, and I mean even weekends, for months now, as they've tried to get their planning together for the season ahead. So that's not exactly a critical moment in the decision-making process of whether they're going to play football in the Big Ten. Some things to watch out for from the social media perspective. You saw a barrage of it today from the players and the coaches. Some coaches went on camera today to talk
So many, we could hardly keep up at one point.
All of them, but that's not by accident. That's calculated.
For sure.
And they understand that their season is on the line right now unless they come up with a unified front that is organized, that is thoughtful, that presents the case for playing football and the safety measures put in place, not only by the NCAA, but the Big Ten itself, that the teams were asked to follow in order to play football. The teams feel like they're being blindsided here. They're like, we did what you asked us to do. We put these protocols in place. We are following them to a T. We have not had cases since we started camp. We feel good about our testing measures. We feel good about the student athletes and their decision making, especially as students start to come back to campus. And things obviously can change in that dynamic socially for players. But they feel good about what they've done. They feel like the league presidents, in the reported discussion of them leaning toward canceling the season, have kind of pulled the rug out from underneath them.
Right.
And they feel like that they were doing everything right. And now they feel like they're just being left out to dry and frankly, not understanding what they did all that for. What did they put all that effort in for? Why did you give me a schedule 5 days ago and tell me like this is you're going to be playing? And no, there was no noticeable difference in COVID procedures or anything else. And then you say we can't play now. You 5 days ago sent out a schedule. It's very hard and very frustrating for the players and the coaches to understand that process. And that's why I think you're seeing today a legitimate, organized revolt.
I was honestly shocked at, I think I gasped when I saw Ryan Day's tweet where he was like, fight. This is not over for him and his players and different coaches that you guys have been retweeting and following all day. Has there been any dissent, or has that kind of been the vocalized, what the heck, we want to play? Parents, players, coaches, all of them, it seems like. I haven't seen any dissent from the people who actually play football, coach football, are impacted by football.
Christine, that's first of all, that's an excellent observation, because you're going to find that the people who are most intimately involved in the sport are the ones who defend it the strongest. And they're the ones who believe that they can do this. They can execute this game plan. That's what you do when you play football. You execute game plans. They have been presented a game plan. Here is your pathway to playing. These are the safety protocols you have to follow, the personal behavior standards you must adhere to in order for there to be a football season. That makes sense to football players and football coaches. Football is a game of immense strategy. And when you give players strategy to follow, it's understood. That's the pathway to victory. You do that. And that's why this is so frustrating for them, because they feel like they've done everything they've been asked to do and are not getting the answer that they want back. Now, here's the other interesting part of all this, Christine. And it's the part that I think is fascinating and maybe a big reason why you might see some pullback from a public perspective over the next day or so from Big Ten leaders. Scott Frost from Nebraska flat out said today, if the Big Ten does not play football, Nebraska is playing football,
Yeah.
and they will look at all options to play football. Ryan Day just said in a national interview on ESPN, we will explore all options with our student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a vague statement, right? We don't know what that means. It doesn't mean
Right.
they're going to form a new league or join another league, or that doesn't mean anything. But what it means is that they're paying attention to not only what could happen if the Big Ten doesn't play, but what else is out there in the landscape or what could come. Because I tell you what, if Ohio State turns into a college football free agent, everybody is calling. Everybody is going to want arguably the best team in America this
Right.
year. Uh, a chance to play them or have them bring the eyeballs that Ohio State brings.
To their school,
That
to
would,
their,
oh
yeah.
my gosh, it'd be massive. No matter who it is, even the SEC would be like, yeah, please.
Line them up. Georgia, Florida, Alabama. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think that's the fascinating part of it. There's a couple other things too, right? With the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC sounding so confident that they're going to play. Think about the residuals if the Big 10 and the Pac 12, for example, decide they're not going to play and the other three Power 5 conferences do play. Consider the residual fallout that is not intended, but nonetheless real, of what could happen if that decision gets made.
I talked to Whitney about that earlier today. I mean, just there are a lot of students, whether you agree or disagree, there are a lot of students who go to these Big Ten schools, who go to these Pac-12 schools because they want that big college game day experience. And if I'm not saying that the stadium should be packed, by no means should am I saying that. But if you take away football and take it away in years to come and nobody is interested, I think that's going to hurt the university in more than just football ways.
Well, you're right, and obviously there's a huge financial penalty that's coming here this year for everyone
Of
because of
course.
fan attendance. You know, you take at Ohio State for the year, if you play 7 home games, it's roughly $50 million
Yeah.
in income of ticket sales and concessions and souvenirs on game day, parking, et cetera. That's $50 million they don't have, and they know they're not going to have it. So it's basically a run to rescue the television money
Mhm.
that could be out there potentially for these games, and that's an important amount of money because Scott Frost said today Nebraska could lose 80 to 100 million dollars for the university based on not playing football. So it's a huge financial punishment. But here's the other punishment from a competitive standpoint.
Mhm.
So if the SEC and the ACC, home of Alabama and the SEC and LSU and Auburn, and in the ACC, Clemson, if they play this year, college recruits for next year, the class of 2021, Ohio State has the #1 class in the country right now.
Mhm.
But what if they don't play football? Don't you think that kids are going to be more inclined to
That
go to
transfer
places?
portal's looking nice.
Oh, not only that, I mean, the transfer portal, but just flat recruiting.
Right.
Kids coming out of high school, the 5-star recruit wants to know that the school he's going to is dedicated to playing football because football is important to them.
And you would never think that at Ohio State or Michigan or Nebraska that wouldn't be the case. So it's kind of like you said, everyone is sort of blindsided in all of this, kind of adding to that. Jared, I had one question. I don't know if you want to comment on this or not. So when all of this was coming down in March and we kind of had those several days in March that were sort of like this, like info as far as March Madness was going, the NCAA was running the show. Where's the NCAA in all of this? It seems like
it's actually a great question. Yeah, great question. And here's a part of that why it's different with football.
Mm-hmm.
So in college football, the NCAA does not oversee Power 5 conference, major conference football. The NCAA doesn't govern a championship at that level.
Right.
The big leagues do it themselves. That's part of the bowl system. So you have the FBS, the bowl subdivision, which is the big schools, and FCS, which used to be called 1AA. FCS are those schools like Youngstown State, North Dakota State, who are, they play elite football, but they play for an NCAA championship. In the Division I level, there is no champion. So when you're hearing a lack of NCAA leadership on this, it's because they don't have really any jurisdiction on it. Their jurisdiction is for all other fall sports, and that's good. They're leaving that decision up to Division I presidents and athletic directors themselves to come together to a decision as soon as they can. Division II and Division III have already canceled for the fall. Several conferences have already said, obviously the MAC being one.
Mm-hmm.
Big West has already come on board. So Mountain West, has come on board today saying they're not going to play in the fall. But with the Big Five, they don't they don't care with football about the NCAA. They are governed by NCAA rules, but their championships are not. And that's why it's sort of their own, they set up their own independent process to do this.
Hmm.
And that's a great question, because people are like, well, why is the NCAA so quiet about this? Because they don't really have a dog in the fight here. They
Right.
don't really have a reason to be
Well, it's not
involved in
like
this.
them to be quiet.
Yes. Oh yeah. You give them an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a very fair point. And I don't think, I think certainly the NCAA, a lot of the curiosity has been how they'll react to this because of the debate that's gone on over the last year over name, image, and likeness, that whole
Hmm.
NIL debate, which players have been extremely strong in their advocacy for getting the opportunity to use their own name, image, and likeness to make money,
Yeah.
yeah, on their own branding ability. When they get to a university, the NCAA has fought it forever. This year, they're finally coming around on it, but it's still going through huge problems because they don't want to decide unilaterally on how to implement it. The NCAA is asking Congress for help with antitrust issues. It is a mess. And so I think that is also a part in the debate here that universities and their presidents are having, because they don't know how to make NIL work either.
Hmm.
And it's part of what those players, and they bonded together, their messaging, not only about safety, but they want a voice, they want representation at the table when these decisions are made. That's why you're hearing these rumors about, the college football union that, a couple of years ago, some students at Northwestern tried to get it together, and it kind of just flamed out. But
Hmm.
there's growing momentum for that again. And it's because of not only COVID, but it's because of the NIL issues. So yeah, there's just so many things at play right now that it's just a fascinating drama to follow.
Yeah, it definitely is. Drama is certainly the word for it. So, have you spoken to Coach Conley yet, or did you talk
Oh
to him
yeah,
today? Or okay, what did Coach have to say?
coach is very, Coach Conley, our Buckeye analyst who coached at Ohio State forever. He was also the recruiting coordinator at Ohio State
Hmm.
back in those awesome classes in the 1990s when they were destroying it on the recruiting scene. Bill was was in charge of those classes. And his question was, and it's a very good question, we were talking earlier about recruiting, and his concern is how much damage is done if you don't play. And you can't just measure it in dollars. There is a huge financial penalty to the university and to the league, et cetera. But it's not just that. It's going to be years.
Image. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem when you look at how the university is perceived. And that could go good and bad, right? Because obviously this didn't come out of thin air.
Hmm.
COVID-19, if people aren't taking it seriously and don't understand the potential ramifications, no matter whether you're young or old, healthy or sick, no matter what the qualifications are, it is real and it is a problem. And it's something that we have struggled as a country to deal with, let alone athletic organizations.
Hmm.
So what we've learned in the last few weeks, last few months, is that the bubble systems that these professional leagues have been able to put together have worked tremendously well. The NHL today just reported no COVID cases
Yeah.
in their most recent rounds of testing. They haven't had COVID cases. MLS, after some initial problems, got it together and they did fine. College football's not going to operate that way. They're eventually going to have to go back to their apartments, their dorms, and live like college kids in many respects. And
Hopefully, not
there's
too much
safety
so.
protocols. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like they're going to have to go to class.
Right.
Some will have in-person classes
Yeah.
all across the country. And you know, I understand the concerns are not fake. The concerns are very real and they're very understandable. And that's the rub, because coaches and the players think that they can handle it, that
Hmm.
through contact tracing, through consistent testing, that they can manage issues when they arise, and they admit they will. They think they can manage it, but some people in charge, from a liability standpoint, they think it might be too big a risk to take.
Do you think that's what the underlying reason of all of this is? Just the liability, like of these students and coaches and all of that?
I would call the legal responsibility of what would happen for student athletes getting a case of COVID and developing potentially life altering symptoms from it would be the number one reason why we're having this discussion and continuing to have it
Yeah.
seemingly day after day. Because, you know, so much has been thrown out there about legal waivers, like you can have players and coaches all sign a waiver, and it absolves the universities of any responsibility. And the players go play. They're adults. They're 18 or older. They
Mm-hmm.
can sign it. You can have parents involved in the discussion. Obviously, Ohio State parents. Whitney Harding today went out and did a story with Ohio State parents who are lockstep in support of playing football, and this is their kids.
Yeah.
It's their kids, but they understand the protocols that have been put in place to try to protect them. I think their concern is what happens if they don't play football. It's not about their safety in terms of playing the game and playing competitive sports and all that. Their concern is if they don't have the soft bubble, if you will, that's around Ohio State and the other Big Ten programs. If you lose that and you go back into the general student population, you cancel football, they don't have a structured schedule, they aren't adhering to the protocols that have been set forth for them to keep them safe and healthy. If they don't have that, what is that going to do for cases? Mm-hmm. And so it's a great argument back and forth. And I completely understand both sides of it, but I think that the players are adamant and the coaches are adamant that they at least deserve a chance.
Yeah.
They want to prove everybody wrong that they can execute this. And it's just basically now up to whether the schools will let them.
So if this vote doesn't go, it's so confusing. Was there a vote? Is there a vote? When's there a vote?
Today.
Yeah, so when and if this vote happens by the Big Ten presidents, do you think that the schedule that we got last week would be the one that we're seeing, or are there going to be even more changes to it? Because September 3rd is like less than 4 weeks away.
That's right. And keep in mind, when they release that schedule and you look at how it's framed out, there are opportunities in there to delay it by a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a couple of bye weeks.
Yep.
So that you could move games around and potentially reposition the schedule depending on everybody's capabilities. Also, it was built to where if there is a COVID outbreak on a team and that team couldn't play that week because they were in quarantine, then you could reshuffle the schedule and make sure that everybody still got their 10 games and was eligible to play the Big Ten championship game, which they are still intent on playing. So that schedule is not set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, September 3rd at Illinois, as of right now, could Ohio State play that game? Sure. But I know this, none of the teams are playing full pad practices right now. They're not tackling each other. They're not doing what you do in a football game. So they are not acclimated at that level yet to playing football. And that's why Ryan Day, the other day when he was asked about that, he said, I feel good about what we're doing, but I don't feel good about playing a game yet for a number of reasons.
Right.
And a part of that is their own physical preparation for it. Football's dangerous. If football was dangerous before COVID, it'll be dangerous after COVID. And it is a game where if you are not physically prepared to play your body, it goes through the ringer. And I think that's one of their biggest concerns is the further that they delay allowing them, let's say, for example, they decide they're going to play and they further delay putting them in full pads and letting them practice actual tackle football,
mm-hmm.
Then there are concerns about that start date. And so I bet your suggestion about, whether or not they would have to start on that date, I think there would be a significant push from the coaches to delay it at least a week, maybe 2 weeks. But, the other leagues, I should mention, the ACC, the SEC aren't starting till later in September.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so it's not like they're all trying to start that same weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And those other leagues kind of already built in that acclimation period and figuring out, how to get this done, trial and error, basically, right? You find out what works, what doesn't work, how to keep our kids safe, how to be prepared to go play. And the Big Ten didn't do that. The Big Ten really came out and said, well, we're going to play, and we're going to play on schedule and all this, and then 4 days later didn't.
Or did they?
Or did they? But it's the issue where you've got to figure out not only how to protect them from COVID, but protect them from each other,
mm-hmm.
protect them from the physical grind that is football, and get them in the best physical shape to be prepared for it, because it is real. And I think in all likelihood, if they decide to play, I'd be really surprised if they started as scheduled on the 3rd and on the 5th of September. But that is not by any means a big problem for the season. If they're playing 10 games over 3 months, I mean, they can figure that out.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jared, do you have a hit in the 7? I better let you go.
Nope.
No? Oh, okay.
Nope. I got other stuff to do, but no.
All right. Well, where do we go for here? What do we look for the next couple of days?
I think the big thing to watch out for is what the players and coaches continue to do.
Mhm.
This cannot die. The momentum that they've put on to try to get public sentiment on their side and to get them to understand what they represent, the values they represent, the reason they want to do this and do it the right way, and fight for their kids. If that loses momentum, that doesn't bode well for the season,
Right.
because that's the main reason why I think we're seeing perhaps a thoughtful moment about what to do in the Big Ten and elsewhere in college football. If the players and the coaches and the parents remain united, obviously we know what the fans want. Fans want football. Um, but I think if they remain united in the idea to try it and move forward toward a season and play the season and see how it goes, then I think the chances, if that heat continues to rise,
Hmm.
then I think the chances are good.
All right, Jared, thank you so much. We'll chat with you later, okay?
See ya.
All right, bye. All right, everybody, make sure you tune in for NBC4 at 7 as well as 11 o'clock. I'm sure Jared will have much more then, and we will always keep you updated on NBC4i.com. See you later. Bye.